Invite. Invite audition eh.
Sa tama nga, temporary shield. Temporary shield nga yung ano, yung stream pistol. It's a shield, so parang it negates damage lang.
Temporary nga lang. Saan tayo?
It's not temporary HP, it's temporary armor.
Yung last mission.
Tsaka yung ano, yung steam pistol, pwede mong tirahin yung na-pin down na kasama mo. Hindi mo na siya kailangan lapitan para i-revive.
Level 25 pa yan. 24 ba? 25? Malala ko ng level. Basta higher level pa yan. Hindi siya automatic.
24 Disney.
Let's go.
Dito tong 29, what the hell? Kailangan ko si Deshaun.
Deshaun!
Oh, wala ko. Okay, never mind.
Hard to ah.
Yeah.
Or some extra isa kami lahat na DC sa game eh.
Yung sa hospital na kami.
Eh di ba tayong apat yun?
Tayo sa dulo. Si Mervs.
Oo nga pala si Mervs. Hey Sheik, how are you, man? I'm fine, thanks. How's the quarantine there in your place? I'm not sure if you can hear me, but yeah, I was just asking if how's the quarantine in your area? Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been locking myself down like
out of gas.
Ever since
Fuck.
We'll grab some diesel and get back here. We'll grab some diesel.
Okay. I've been locking myself down for like a month already, so yeah, quite safe.
Skip.
Hang on.
What are we doing?
Can't see shit from here.
Let's just find high ground and see what we got.
Why am I lagging?
Don't make us.
Train cars. We can get through that way.
Okay na yung ping mo.
Because you got shitty internet.
61 naman ang ping mo.
Eh, sa akin nga 230.
Frame rate ba?
Wala.
Helicopter!
It's headed over the river.
Araw sa harap bigin.
Other side of the river.
FPS yung ano.
Kaya ano dito, matindi nga daw dito sabi ni Lester. Mataas kumain ng frame rate.
Don't shoot me!
Creeper! You're rat food now. Right here. I got an exit.
Popper's food right over us in Manhattan.
Pumuputong nga yung sasakyan eh.
Why wouldn't they do it here?
You got a better idea? Keep moving.
Uy, aray! May screamer.
Down.
Infector.
Down infector.
Ba't napakadami ng mga kalaban?
Hard baby.
Takbo na tayo sa first. Go to the next position. Unlimited yata eh.
Keeper neutralized.
Unlimited eh. 4 pa ba naman nandiyan.
Climb up. Maybe we can get through.
Check ko lang kung may breach. Breach. Yun ako. I'll save this for you.
May bull sa likod ba?
Bomber! Stay back!
Bantay lang.
Take out the bomber!
Bomber.
Bomber!
May turret dito ah. Or nag-spawn ba? Or RNG?
Parang hindi yata.
Hindi nag-spawn.
May bull?
Ano po?
We take the
Umakyat.
stairs.
Roof's about to come crashing down. I almost did.
Mamaya ako na gamitin yung breach sa hospital na. Mas support natin. Kaya alam may smoke.
Yeah, he's got nice graphics, bro.
Heads up. Creeper.
Ano po sa video?
Stream ako.
No viewers.
English.
Yeah.
Or they have the COVIDs. COVID's right there. Narinig ako.
Siguro, yeah.
You like the COVIDs? The Asian?
Hey, I'm reloading!
May maakyat.
Defense ba ito?
Creeper on the loose!
Oh. Don't
Oh,
shoot
we need to
me.
go down.
They're coming in!
Gago, bawas ako.
I see a second helicopter. Could actually be evac.
Could be a shitstorm.
Closer. Take a look.
Diretso na dito sa taas.
This bridge is probably taking some hits.
Nice one, thanks. Running. Pati run speed parang bumibilis kapag skillin mo kami.
For this shit?
Well, that mountain of Zeke I just hauled my ass over says otherwise.
Oh.
Hindi, ano yung team boost yan?
At saka si Tap.
Ako na. Hilang ako.
No, wag na.
May heal si Vince.
Wala na.
Sa sarili niya.
Sige.
Hindi kinuha nila yung medkit eh.
Okay yan.
Sayang.
Ako na.
Tingnan mo, may heal si Vince oh. Pag ni-heal tayo ni Vince, may heal din siya sa sarili niya.
Oo.
Wala na, nakuha na nila yung ibang medkit.
25% lang yung may heal niya sa sarili niya.
Next time.
So, at least dalawang heal.
All right,
Next time.
here we go.
Dali.
Explosives! Get back!
Huwag yung basagin yung nasa gilid ah. Ay, wala.
Down below. Stay quiet.
Yeah, they
May bull
hurt us!
sa likod.
Let 'em have it! Bomber! Stay back!
Bomber sa likod.
Nahuli ako.
Alis na kayo dyan. Ang dami nila dito.
Wala.
Alis na kayo dyan. Ang dami na nila.
Naipit ako eh.
Naipit tayo dun sa ano.
Ay, gago. Thank you.
Civilians! 4 of us looking for a way out!
We're hoping you got room in those choppers. We're on the roof of the hospital.
Here you go, Claymore.
Make it up here, we can get you out.
Iwasan nyo lang yung claymore para ano, yung zombie yung tatamaan.
May virus dito.
Wrong side.
Uy! Gago! Yung Claymore, tinamaan ako.
Gago daw yun.
Gago, hindi na ako
Masyado
makakit
nating
dyan.
nirush. Masyado nating nirush.
Hindi, huwag kayong
Yeah.
magtigil kasi dyan. Dire-diretso lang to.
Hindi nga. Ang dami kalaban eh.
Nauna ka kasi malayo na eh. So parang
Oo.
Gas back!
Naisip na kami.
on yung ano.
Next, let's see. Unless kaya yan, lampas yan.
Kalaban ako, bull. Ay, putragis yun.
nag-spawn yung ano, yung marami.
Tumayo ka dito.
May self-revive kit.
Yeah.
Wait, bakit pa rin buhay?
Hey, Chic, suggest me a good game for Malo and Potato.
Huwag natin
I
i-rush.
suggest
Kalma tayo.
you start with
Okay lang, malapit lang naman siya.
Path of Exile if you kind of like ARPG
Sa
game.
middle pa lang tayo.
That's a free game and it doesn't
Something
require
is
much
eating up my CPU.
high-end PC.
What?
I think. Path of Exile, man.
Ano mga ibang book?
I would suggest that.
Chrome.
Definitely, I would suggest that. Path of Exile.
Google Chrome. Wala akong kumain yan.
Di ako boss.
If you want, you can also try this game since it's free at the moment. It's World War Z, so yeah, go ahead and try it. Just download Epic Launcher and then grab it while it's free.
Ready din daw.
Kaya lang, unlock lang ako ng ano. Executioner. So na-unlock ko na yung Executioner to. Perform one more melee strike before becoming tired. Melee damage increase 50%. Okay. It's in the Epic Store, bro. Oh, which one are you asking? Was that the Path of Exile or this game that I'm playing right now? If you're asking for the Path of Exile, just go to pathofexile.com. Or you might as well get it from Steam. I think they have it released on Steam as well. But if it's not available in your region, then just go ahead and go straight to pathofexile.com. Path of Exile. EXILE.
I'm pulling over.
Fuck.
Path of Exile.
Diesel and get back here. Boat has a 10,000-gallon tank, ain't you? You hauling that back?
So, what are we doing?
Can't see shit from here.
Let's just find high ground and see what we got.
Get into that train.
Yeah, you go ahead and try that, bro. It's a nice game.
Should have stayed on the boat.
Not an option, bunko. We got a chopper!
It's crossing over the river.
Helicopters landing across the river.
Could be our way out. Bridge! Up the street! Come on, cabrons!
Right here. I got an exit.
Kailangan
Army
yata
left us
natin
to die in
pag-
Manhattan.
agad to eh.
Why would they help us now?
Quit that shit. We're doing this. Get your head straight.
Get up and into that building. Reloading.
Take him out!
May breaching charge ulit dito.
Akit na ako.
Infector coming in.
Infector.
We take the stairs.
Roof's about to come crashing down. Let's move it.
Yung ano, bull.
Anybody else?
Lagi ang dying.
Lumutang siya sa taas.
Ay, ba ito na dito yung reload? Ano sa kabilang side? What? Ba't na yung reload?
It's hard mode, baby.
Kanina meron.
Hindi,
Saan
ano,
eh?
yung
Dito,
ano, mawawala minsan.
RNG?
RNG, yeah.
Fuck.
Wala na akong ano.
Ay, gago. Umarang ka.
Well, we got nothing.
Diretso na kagad to sa taas, huwag na kayong ano, tumigil yan.
Could actually be evac.
They're making a lot of noise. Could get ugly.
Dito na. Better dito.
Diretso na dito.
Bridge is probably taking some
Na may
hits.
ano dito, may ammo crate dito
We
sa...
lost the bronze by now.
They're not holding back on the gunships.
Those Bofor rounds were made to kill tanks, not swarms.
Pasok, pasok.
Ay, gago.
Nakamute kaya nata DIJINN.
Thanks.
Oo, nakamute ako.
Muted.
Yeah, Sheik, you can surely play it. It's free at the moment.
You can play it with DIJINN. For some COVID.
Right.
Alright, dire-diretso lang tayo.
Reloading.
Huwag kayong tumigil. Pag ano lang,
Tara,
pag
tara, tara.
dire-diretso lang iwas lang yung explosive.
Sudden moves.
Huwag kayong tumigil dito kasi mapinpoint tayo, mapin down tayo dito eh.
Somebody shot me.
Get ready!
Ay, gago, ba't kayo tumalon sa explosive?
Army. We're seeing activity on the bridge. Identify yourself.
There's 4 of us! Civilians!
Di ako tumalon. Ang layo ko kasi later.
We could really use a ride out of here.
Dito, diretso, huwag na yan.
On the roof of the hospital, evacuating wounded. If you can make it up here, we can get you.
Diretso na tayo dun sa ilalim.
Thank you, sir!
Mapin down tayo dyan, ang dami nila dyan eh.
Parking garage entrance is on the right!
Let's go.
May medkit ako.
Wala ko kuha na medkit, wala ko kuha na medkit.
Auto turrets will chew us up.
No.
Kunin ko na yung internet. I'll try and hack the
They're
purchase.
coming in.
Infector!
Aking turret.
Third hack na dito.
Saki, heal kita.
I'm down.
Matay si Dino.
Trick yan. Tinamaan na naman ako ng ano.
One, gonna fix you up.
I gotta get this off of me.
Screamer sa loob.
Pull your shit together. We gotta get in the elevator now.
Ay, gago, may isang,
Okay.
may tarit pa sa kabila.
Hack na yan.
Hindi, may isa pa.
Eh, hack na nga. Yung iniwasan ni Jindo yung...
Yeah, Sheik, you can play this game right now. It's free.
We'll keep going.
And the Path of Exile is free as well, so you definitely can play it.
Huwag kayong kumuha ng mga medkit ah. Let me heal you.
You're holding us up. Get in here.
Let me heal me. I need healing.
Anyone have a medkit?
Arnetta, you pull your shit together.
DIJINN, use your medkit na. Wala nang ano dyan.
Yeah, sure.
All right, listen up. We're evacuating
May breaching charge ako.
I think you can. Just set your resolution to
I need every
lower resolution, I guess.
Everyone's out.
Copy that!
I'm no soldier, but this seems like a shitty place to defend.
It really is.
Uy, battle rifle. Yes.
It's free anyway.
Stationary machine gun. So,
I
saan yung
also
ilagay?
Kinda wish we were with Dan right now.
He can't be having this much fun.
Got a door
Breaching
charge.
charge meron ako. Naalala mo ba dito kung asan yung ano? Breaching...
Ito,
Breach.
may
Dun sa baba, kabilang side. On the right side of this labas.
Oh no way.
Right side nitong labas na to. Kasi doon, yan. Kasi
Coming here. Shit.
Breaching charge ready!
may na-blow akong dito. Meron dito, Velpop, medikit.
Okay.
Bull! Sa akin, Bull!
Shit.
Screamer dead.
Hindi ko mapatay eh.
Okay.
Ay, you guys are taking damage ah. Gamitin ka na kasi ito, Tak. Delikado ng buhay mo eh.
Sige. Magpa-plant pa ako ng defense dun eh. 13 seconds na. Meron kasi dito eh, strike.
Meron pa akong charge.
Planting defense.
1 second.
Shit.
You have to, Nasaan yung, flare gun?
Vince, may dito.
Medkit right
Medkit.
there.
Okay.
Ayan, sa harap, sa harap.
People.
Elvis 12, rolling in hot. Mark the target with a flare. Sergeant Pembry, come on, mark the swarm. Pembry, to your ease. Somebody grab the flare gun and fire it into that goddamn swarm.
Walang may flare gun.
Meron ako.
Fire mo na dun sa agad. Harap.
Reloadable yung horse, yung server na.
Gamitin mo lang gamitin.
Coming around. Stand by. I'm gonna circle around for another run. Stand by.
Gago. Teka lang. Kunin ko tong breach dito.
What do we have here? Eyes over here.
Alis sila dito. Gusto mo dito. Walang nagmayan ng machine gun dito.
Oh, fucker! Nahuli ako, help.
Patay din ako.
Ang dami nila.
Dami. Alis sila sa harap din.
I see a ball.
Okay, nice one. Iwas lang ako I'll just go back.
Down.
Pero marami, I can, atras ako dito sa
Use the flare and give me a target. I see the mark. Stand by.
Damn. Could have used that in Manhattan.
I'm gonna circle around for another run. Stand by.
Screamer!
Nice.
Nice.
Screamer down.
Basement level. Elvis 12 to ground unit. Hold for my reapproach.
Nandito sila sa right side.
I'm looking for the ammo crate.
Malapit sa kaliwa.
Sa labas. Dami.
Dito ba yung ammo crate dito?
Ayun, okay.
Main hall sa loob. Tara.
Would you believe Vince na assault rifle pa itong gamit?
Putugis.
Bull sa labas!
Boom!
Dalawa naman sa likod niyo. At titingnan lang buhay kayo.
May bull. Ay, hindi. Ano pa?
We're dead, hazmat.
Hazmat.
Low pa rin.
Yep.
Get that electric grid back online.
Get that electric grid.
Dapat
back
nandito
on.
tayo lahat.
Kailangan bumaba.
Let's get it back up.
Hazmat inbound.
Guys, I need help here.
Ow. Pinda na ako.
Guys,
Hindi Wait. Nasa baba ka?
Oh, nandito yung ano eh.
Pero
Nandito yung quest natin.
ito yung objective eh.
Oo.
Kasi hindi ko maano kasi
Okay na ako.
Creeper.
Ay, gagong creeper ka. May bull pa.
Patay yung bull.
Thought he had me there.
Grid's powered up. Need a boost.
Ganda na itong ano, baril ko, M4.
get na ulit.
We got an electrified grid down.
Thanks.
Second floor, right side.
Second floor yung ano, our electric grid.
wala na ako ammo.
Let's get it back up.
Wala na ako steam.
Shit. Bummer.
I'm down. Thank you.
Get that electric grid back online.
Okay na. Ito, steams. Dito. Ay, nito.
Gunshot. Gas bag. Gas bag down. Stay clear of the gas.
Ah, putek na naman ako.
I got
Yung
you, buddy.
hazmat.
Up and at 'em, kid.
Thanks.
Ito, steams, ano, jump up. Good mo.
Did everybody get some?
Cover up that damn grid.
Buhay pa rin yung bull.
Down. Okay. Uy,
May isa kanan.
Ay, gagi.
Grid's powered up.
Powered up na. Electrified na.
Bull.
Reloading.
Nice.
I need all fire on that stadium.
Yung
Stadium.
wala na akong buhay, oh. Nakikita niyo ba?
Ano na, stadium.
Ah,
Sarap ng stadium.
yung mga auto turret, ano niya. Ah, ayan na.
Let's move.
Samahan ko si James dito.
Heading to you now.
Get to the evac zone.
Ah,
Tara. Nice one.
Where are we going?
Get the fuck out of here.
I am good with that. Let them have New York.
Ay, hindi ko nakuha
It's
yung...
it's different
Virus.
from Mobile Legend, Sheik. It's more like Diablo 3 if you know about Diablo series. No problem with your English, man. Just try and install it, and then maybe if you like it, then let me know. As of now, I'm playing
Useful ng medic.
Path of Exile,
Cobra.
World War Z,
Tuwa ako dun sa performance mo.
Call of Duty. Those are the games that I'm playing right
Sulit
now.
pala pag nag-headshot, ano, yung bird.
Sabi sa'yo.
Mas maano siya. Naku nga yun.
Mag-level 24.
Ganda nung nakuha kong baril kanina. M4. Ano to?
M4A1.
Oo. You will not become fatigued when melee attacking zombies electrified by a stun gun. Nah, I don't like that. Mali ako. Binili ko lahat ng upgrades.
Same tayo. Binili ko rin lahat. Nung barrel,
Pati yung sa class. Dapat pala kung ano lang yung gusto kong
kung ano
gamitin.
yung gagamitin mo lang.
Oo.
Ako sa barrel, hindi doon ako nagkamali. Sa class, yung isa-isa ko.
Kada may ma-unlock, bili.
Gina.
Sino si Gina?
Pangit yung
Si James.
Mas pangit yung max na ang assault rifle na tier 2.
Assault rifle na tier 2? Ganda nga niya, no? Suppress. Tapos ang haba ng machine ng magazine.
Hindi, yung tier 4 niya, ang difference lang nila, hindi siya suppressed eh.
May recoil control naman. Ay, hindi, may may laser. May laser. Accuracy yung maganda.
Yung sa
Fire.
meron na.
Yung sa 4 kasi, kahit sa hip fire lang, may laser ka.
Accurate siya.
Yun nga.
Di siya, PUBG.
Phoenix, how's it look from up there?
Phoenix.
300 deep in Greengold's house.
We got hope for backup. He's dead if we wait. We gotta get him out now.
Pucha nito.
Let's keep it down.
Tango's dead ahead.
Dito ako sa kanan.
These checkpoints
Para hindi
are
tayo
alarms.
tamaan.
See those speakers? You thinking diversion?
We bring them here and clear our path to the house. We should clear these stragglers and then build the fences.
Auto turrets ka lagay. Facing gate or not?
Ginawa ko facing dyan sa gate na yun. Para dito ako pupwesto sa taas.
Alarm triggers up on the bridge.
Pindutin ka na ba?
Right.
Tara.
Yep.
Pwede.
Here we go.
Galing yata muna sa harap eh.
Ano game?
Yep.
Bago lumitaw lang sila ulit dito sa atin. Pag matagal kasi wala akong ginagawa. Lilitaw lang sila.
Alpha, you woke him up. Get ready.
You're not dying today, motherfuckers.
Ingay mo.
Infector pala.
Sa likod.
What?
I'm reloading.
Sa likod ulit. Sa likod ulit. Right side.
Na yata.
Wala akong bala.
Sabay tayo. Kuha din ako.
Reload.
Bull on me.
That's what you get.
Punta sa baba ka.
Alpha, enemy dispersed. Your route is clear.
Alright.
We need to reach Green Gold. Let's go.
Okay na?
Okay na.
Opening the gate.
Walang kumuha ng kanina. Okay na.
Hindi mo na. Sorry.
This better be worth it, Wolf. Fucking lasers from space.
I sorted test fine. Melted a McCarver tank.
Lurker.
Lurker out! Get inside and board up that door.
Pasok para masara yung pinto.
Gas back running. Get upstairs. Balcony exit to Green Gold. Down. Stay clear.
Yan sa likod.
Oy! Bakit kinagtan ako?
Wala ko ah.
Hindi lumusot sa butas, sorry. Sabi ng arc lulusot daw.
Dito sa taas.
Wait, sana yung refill? Saan yung refill?
Wala.
Shot lang bala. Ayun na to.
May steams ah.
I see you, Alpha. You're coming up on the objective. Head for the searchlight.
Kaya kumuha. Puno pa yung stick ko. Ah, sige. Hindi ko naman.
Aray. Gulat ako.
Virus.
Zombie!
Alpha, you have targets moving on your position.
Zombie!
Want me?
Reach na tayo dito. Dito na tayo sa house.
Oh shit. Are we too late? Found the defense kit.
Pero may end dito. Eh, wala
Anybody
yung...
alive in here?
Ba't wala yung...
Up here.
Wala yung ammo box.
Head the fuck out.
Sa labas
Negative,
yung ano.
Alpha. They're almost on top of you. You'll have to
Sa
engage.
taas yung ammo box.
Let's get this place locked.
Oh shit. Bull. Huwag mo nang... Barili mo na.
Gago.
Baril mo sa spine.
Ba yan? Hindi naman nag-activate yung ano? Yung finisher.
Wait, atras ka, Vincent.
Hindi, ayun lang.
Yeah.
Kapatid Jin.
Hey, you the doc?
Jin, where are you?
Here.
Where's you?
And for the screamer!
Stay here, Green Gold.
Thank you. Napatay mo na yung ano? Screamer ano?
Hindi ko alam kung napakita. Wala ako eh.
Nawala na, patay na.
Oh, one last gas bag.
Hey, punta ako sa kabilang wing. Babantay.
Come on, bitches!
Full market. Digin. Down.
Thank you. Yun no, boost! Ora! Wala na uloy. Wala na.
I'm reloading!
Putang ina, nalaglag ako.
Ay, gagawin ko.
Okay ka lang dyan, Tap.
Okay lang.
Wala na akong ammo.
That's right, bitches!
Inspector!
Alpha, nothing moving out here. You're clear.
Doc, grab your shit and let's go.
I can't leave without the launch codes. What? Launch codes. Without them, the satellite is useless. Shit! Where are
So,
they?
pupunta tayo sa basement.
Okay, I've been tracking them. One is at the hospital and...
Pag may medkit, huwag niyo kukunin ha.
You fucking kidding me?
Sure.
Oh,
May
suck it up.
bonus din
Let's
kasi
ride
ako
the
pag
damn
nag-heal
codes.
eh. So, meron kayo, kumbaga yung heal nyo 130% effective. Uy, ano yan?
Come look at here.
Ah, team.
Kailangan ko.
Sa'yo. Harap pa ako.
Saan makikita yung stamina ng sprint?
Wala.
What?
Uy, flare gun.
I got it. Oh! Medkit. Stop. Saan ka?
Nandito. Tirahin ko muna yung screamer.
Hazmat inbound!
Thanks.
Gas back down.
Bull. Down. Infected ako. Wait, disinfecting.
Kaka-heal ko lang sa'yo ah.
Oh,
Na-infect siya.
na-infect ako.
Move! We don't want to get trapped in here.
Okay na.
Oh,
Wait,
Barricade.
sabay-sabay lang.
Sorry, may lurker dun eh.
Heading upstairs.
Crossbow kay battle rifle ah. Good for me.
Wala dito.
Look here. Alpha, I've got limited.
I got one of the cases. Nice work. Let's find the next one.
Nice.
Get out of here.
Wait,
Doctor,
pa-reload mo
moving to
na.
find the second case. Stand by.
Yung ammo nandun sa bahay.
Ah, fuck, wala pala dito. Okay.
Babalik tayo sa bahay.
Dito.
Ha?
Dito.
Diyan?
Incoming!
Ay, ganda pala na itong baril na to. Yung ano, pistol na to.
Glock.
Ay, charge.
Doorbuster.
Burster Glock yan.
Oo nga eh. Dapat ito pala yung ano, in-upgrade ko.
Ay, gabi!
Thanks. Oh,
Tara.
Uy,
Uy, nasa ta.
Uy,
May bull dito. Gago.
tara, dito.
Magre-reload muna ako. Akit ako.
Tara, objective. Objective, tara. Ay, objective, tara.
Dali.
Gago, ba't tayo pinapabalik doon?
Hindi, dalawa kasi yun eh. Meron pa sa kaliwa. Yung kanan pa lang napupuntahan natin. DIJINN, malayo ka.
Gago. May tao dito.
Shit, nasa kabilang side yung...
Tara, man.
Hindi na ako
See you,
sprint.
screamer!
Kaliwa.
I'm burning through fuel here. Hurry up with those cases.
Ora!
Keep it tight, group.
Eto, may mga meds dito. Ano?
Sige. Alam ko, Stay mo na lahat.
Giving you a boost.
Gago, may katabi pala ako. James, stop. Saan kayo?
Ibe-breach ko dito,
Buti na, pwede kang bumaril habang
Breaching.
Fire in the hole!
Stop, heal na kita.
Ay, gago, meron pa dito, Bin.
Nice.
Puro ano lang.
Kuha yung isa sa inyo. Dalawa pala. Meron pa isa. Ayun.
Ano ba kung makyat ka?
May staircase dun sa first floor. Yung kung saan ka hinil.
Yun.
Ito ko yung briefcase.
Phase 2.
Coming back for you, Doctor.
Dito yung daan.
I'm burning through fuel here. Hurry up with those cases.
Doctor, we have a satellite link at our base. Does that work for you?
No, I can only
Yay! May nakuha kong virus sample.
Where's that? The arm base.
500 din yan.
North of here.
Alpha, Ram has a mock-bed auto anti-air system. We'd be shot down.
Uy,
Meron yata nakapasok.
Get together before we move.
Dito. Format.
Taas.
Ammunition talaga.
alright, let's go.
Get in here, or I will kill you myself.
Get in here or I will kill you
We're
myself.
coming out.
Copy. Moving the console at helipad.
Armored.
This way. We can use the rooftops to get there.
Ito na. Helicopter.
Alpha, I have a visual on you.
Copy that.
The gate is locked. Open it!
Infector.
That's a shitload of Z.
Massive hole!
Go, may smoker.
Your fucking asses, Alpha. Alpha, they're climbing the walls toward the chopper.
Focus fire on that pyramid!
Gago, screamer nandun.
Patay na.
Nasa likod.
I think we got it all.
Dito the chopa.
That's
Walang ball.
Oh, shit.
Ammo.
Ay, batong rifle. Nakita ako.
This'll work.
Let's go! Ibabarricade ko na to, James.
Toward the chopper.
Wag. Doon sa chopper.
Focus fire on that.
Ay, babarricade ko din to. Why not both?
Diretso na dito.
That's right, bitches.
This'll keep the seed out.
Ay, nakakuha akong breaching third.
Grid is ready to...
Breaching. Breaching ako, breaching.
Found the defense gate. Look, right here.
Defense tools.
Place the machine gun. Fortifications. Auto turret is scanning.
Lalabas.
I'm trying to kill it.
Grenade. Disinfecting ako.
Bakit kayo, ang tagal dyan?
Sarap.
Hindi nakaharang eh.
I'm reloading.
Moving to you, Phoenix. Take snag the tail rotor.
Ito na.
Mahirap to ah.
Ah, puta. Kala ko zombie.
Sinong wala pang special dyan? May ano doon, shotgun.
Hindi lang.
Swapping in the big gun. Keep coming. Reload.
Ah, puta dito sa likod.
Here. How much longer,
Disinfecting.
Phoenix?
Disinfecting on it.
Yung kasama dito.
Shit. Kailangan ko tulong. I'm dead.
Pa-up si Tak. Pa-up si Tak.
Yeah, naap na.
Ah, shit. Down din ako.
Up yung DIJINN.
What took you so long?
Ah, putik na.
Somebody.
Grabe.
Survive lang kayo, survive. Tangina na bullshit ako. Chopper. Atras. Oh.
Everybody
Yun.
okay?
Nice.
Anyone get bit?
Hectic
I'm
ah.
okay.
Grabe yun.
I'm okay.
Look at them. They never stop.
We could fight our whole lives and never make a goddamn difference.
I think I can help with that.
Ako pa tayo ng virus.
How's it going? I talked to him before? Oh, no, I didn't. Roast jelly. Yeah, I know all about
Kina na one shot ako nung
like out of order.
nung
Discover 4 legendary B-types.
Nag-MGL
Lebron.
ka.
I want to see a honey store.
Ha?
Nag-MGL ka. Magkatabi tayo.
Ano yung MGL?
Hindi, ina-up kita eh. Tapos yung
Major Gaming League?
Lebron binangga ako.
Uy, dalawang level up yun ah.
Eagle Eye.
Yan na, may heal na yung Steam ko.
Nice. Ooh, 420 oh. Just the virus.
Plus 70 lang pala yung virus.
Laki na yun.
Kapos
Killing
ako ng
15 zombies in rapid succession allow you to hit one more target per melee strike for 10 seconds.
60 seconds. 15 zombies.
Wala. Kailangan tangkihin.
Kaya upgrade ko na lang yung bullpups ko. Kailangan ko ng tier 3 eh. Wala naman sa inyo kumuha ng bullpup mo.
Wala.
Usually assault carbine kinukuha.
8, 9, 9 na pala yung dulo.
Ako crossbow at saka battle rifle.
Maka na yung isa.
Assault carbine pala yung gamit ko kanina. 416.
Apo, ito yung may bus.
Yeah. Car parts.
Yeah. Someone needs to stay on him.
Yep.
2x2?
Dapat yung ano,
By two.
si James pwede.
Hindi, the by twos tayo.
Hindi kaya ng isa yun.
Ah,
Yeah.
sige.
Baka may special eh. Baka
Kami dalawa ni James na lang dun sa ano. Kaya dalawa ni DIJINN sa labas.
Yep.
Since kayo yung slasher.
Oo, kasi
So,
gunslinger din ako.
ganda na itong part na to eh. Ito yung sobrang
Thrilling
thrilling.
kasi dito.
Oo. Gago kasi yung doktor eh. Tagal niyang ayusin yung kotse. Dapat nung in-order niya, pinayos niya muna. Save Israel.
This is it. Any closer and those AA guns will tear me up.
Wouldn't want to scratch your paint job.
We get inside the power plant. Take cover and wait for Phoenix to draw the locals away.
Copy that, Alpha.
Stay close, Doc. Time to move.
Stay back, Gringo!
Okay.
Ay, kampi pala si Stanley. Ano, sorry.
We're seeing
Ito ako
more
laban
action.
Wala kasi siyang pangalan eh.
Matakbo ka yung sa kaliwa? Ay, hindi pala ito.
Yun yung ano ko, instinct ko eh. Pag walang pangalan na shoot it. Walang beach in charge.
Let's go. We've got Zeds in the plant. Eyes open for a lurker.
Alpha, they're on to you. Multiple swarms inbound.
Oh, fucking perfect.
Dig in.
Stationary machine gun.
Get your ass inside and stay low.
Okay.
Found the defense kit.
Nanigas sa likod mo, Vince.
Now that's a weapon.
Dito.
Nung
May bull dito.
Ano pwede niya isirain, no?
Oo,
Anong gani yung may breaching charge?
ganun dapat. Bigyan niya na.
Meron pa dito ah.
Okay yung defenses no. Dadating itong mga to.
Bigyan ko na, ah.
Oo, sige.
This'll work. That's right, bitches!
Shit. Seek surging through the dam. Got the lurker.
May bull sa kaliwa. James
Stop the turbines from here.
Ay, bull pala.
Uy, God.
Ayun, may bull sa kaliwa.
May bull nga.
Pinagalingan natin kanina.
May tumatalon.
Ayun, nahulog ka.
Dijin, mag-isa ka dyan sa gilid na yan, ha?
Sige. Pabantay ako sa kanya.
Keep coming.
Ako na yung sa baba niyo, troll. Ako na yung dyan. Naka-machine. Itong nasa baba ko na lang.
Sa likod mo, Kak, makakit yung pool.
Talaga. Oo nga na. Naka-raise sa akin.
Tangay yung bull niya.
Holy shit! I love this guy.
Honestly, I did not expect that to work.
Lo, ang dami.
Wait, sorry. Nawala ka ako dahil may bull.
Ah, dami!
Madali.
Okay na dito sa baba. Okay na dito sa DIJINN na lang yung DIJINN na pala.
Ang ganda ng ano. Pag nag-steam ako, putik, walang damage.
Yun nga, parang may shield ka.
Yun nga yung point.
5 kilometers to the
Yun
base.
yung point niya.
Let's go.
As we came in, I saw
Kasi
Sarap pang ano
ko para ma-up ko yung ano eh. Instantly. Kung sino man sa inyo.
Ano?
Ito lang.
Dito yun, diba?
Ako, wala akong makita ng ano sa
Dito,
taas.
dito.
Really. Parang madali yun ha. Diba usually yung mas
Organize lang tayo.
based on experience na yun.
Oo.
Taking for the charges.
Stay behind us. Building needs pest control. Big door straight across the hall.
Sure ako meron dito isang ano. Card.
Dito na, nawawala.
Screamer.
Darling.
Dead.
Tayo na.
Uy! Gagi!
Bull.
May bull.
Bull down. Bull's down.
Infector. Down.
Vector down.
Kami naman nun. Sunod-sunod.
Buti nasa ito bang bull.
Ay, ano ba yung weak spot talaga ng bull? Akala ko
Likod. Yung spine.
Naghawa ka niya yung likod
Push
niya.
the damn door switch.
Kahit sa atin hindi ka. Kahit hindi pa hawak. Kirahin mo na sa likod. So yung technique niya, parang literally parang bull. Parang nagtotoro. Puta ka sa side. Try mo siya sa likod.
Sure ako may breaching charge dyan eh.
RNG yung breaching charge but check natin din. Sometimes it's on sunlight first. Interact mo na.
Tara, sige.
Swarm.
Doors are open. Everybody out.
Want me? Come get me. Reloading.
Dami.
Going down.
Down there. We've got to jump this fence.
Uy, nangyari kasi ano, doctor.
Find another way down there.
Oh.
Bull.
Swarms are gone. Turbines brown them up. Look alive. We got time.
Si Vince.
Kala ko hindi na iwasan.
Nice.
It's alright.
Wala pa rin
Go.
ba ammo? Nabala ko.
Nakikita ko na yung trajectory.
No more lurker.
Naliyat na dito, stim packs. Kaya lang mabuo.
Wala pa rin ba ammo?
Parang wala. Sa next part pa yata eh. Yung magde-defend
Pag
yata
easy,
tayo.
meron dyan eh. Yung part na yun.
We got an opening in the rock.
Dito naman pag normal.
Rocket launcher.
Likod, meron. Madami sa likod ah. Okay. Forward.
Hindi ko alam kung may ammo.
Landmines!
May mines.
My God.
Ito, I'm weird.
Bodies. This was a
May
massacre.
ammo.
Doesn't even register
Grenade?
anymore,
Sino gusto?
dog.
Infector! Died.
Bull.
Hold up! I see your lines!
Dito. Ay, amo pala dyan.
We got incoming.
Good enough. Landmines!
Chainsaw oh.
Something you should see there.
Pinagalingan natin.
Ay, dumaan sa harap ko ah.
Got eyes on a lurker! Lurker's down! You're pissing me off!
Friendly fire.
Come on, bitches!
Alright, let's go. Run.
Wait, reveal.
Reload.
Okay, we can go.
Tara, Vince. May mga lumalabas na sa likod.
Hindi nga eh. Stop. Stop. Oh no.
Sorry, naglag ako.
Let's go. Choke point yan, choke point. Eto na.
Joke.
Wala na ako steam ah.
I've never seen one that big.
Yung dalawa na bala.
Kaming galang
Kasi
yun.
yung ano,
Kaya
kasi
mag-defend.
naman pala.
Got it.
Dito.
Ay, ito. Hindi ba lang yung position? Yes, battle rifle.
Take those car parts. Search everywhere.
Sige.
Keep coming.
Sige, good pop.
Yung sa may ammo.
What? Nice. Screamer dito.
Kaya na, dinidepend ko na dito.
Nandito kami kay Goldwood
Screamer's
ah.
gone.
Box checking. Find
Dito yung part stock.
Yep, may gas yung mga.
I got parts.
Ah.
Running
May
back
ano dito.
now.
Great.
Bull
Carbine.
pop.
This'll work.
Delivery.
All yours.
Alright, done. Dito yung isa tak.
Bull.
Oh, ba't?
Ginawa may dalawa.
Bigla mo yung...
Reloading!
Yeah.
Ito na naman!
You can't publish that.
Nope.
Got something. Bring
Because it's fine.
Tara, DJ.
Dijin, pagbalik mo, i-heal kita ah. So make it fast.
Clean.
Here.
Yeah, just wait, Prince. After this one. Yeah, just wait. We'll just finish this one. Because there are lots of zombies. Look at here. Dito tak. Yeah, just wait.
Doctor.
Ay, gago. Saan daan na ito?
Ay, mabukas.
Find those pods.
I got parts. We got,
Oh,
he's
full
got
TikTok.
me.
May breach dito, tak. Ay, gago.
Back down.
May breach dito. Ay!
Coming in.
Bull. Nice, nice, nice.
Got something. Bringing it to you, Doc.
Delivering.
Last.
Di, tuwarok na yun pa rin to.
All yours.
Got it.
Relax.
Ay!
Last.
Jump pa pala!
Jump to. Pero di.
Pag easy pala is 3 lang.
Tatlo lang. Marami, no? Pag ano.
Anong kotse yan? Basura.
Ito, sige isa tayo.
Got something. Hold
Here we
on.
go. Stand by.
Wait, look at this. There's lots of zombies here. Almost done.
All yours.
I'll let you know when it's done. Almost.
Wala na akong
Come here.
team, wala na akong
Come
team.
here. So that you can see the zombies.
Ayaw magpataba kasi nito ni Evans eh.
Ay, gago!
I got parts.
Dami, yung dami dito.
Alis yan, tak! Alis yan, tak!
May parts pa dito, men. Mano.
Here we go. Stand
Ito,
by.
patay na. See? It's almost done. See? 6 out of 9. 6 out of 9. You just need to find spare parts.
Out of 10 na.
Got it.
Last one.
We found it.
Refill mo na, tak.
You need one more.
Yeah.
Bull.
Wait, where does that star?
Just the spare parts.
Got something. Hold on.
Dito na. Shortcut na dito.
There's lots of zombies. Look at that.
Why is it still 8?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring it to him.
All yours.
Got it.
Let's go.
I got it running.
Come here, come here. Huwag na kayong mag-refill.
Everybody get in.
Ayan, grabe. Dami.
Come on, come
Pero
on.
mas madali yan.
Nice job.
Alam na natin na
Mas madali yung magdidepende no? Kayong nag-iikot lang.
All of you just shut up for a
Kasi tayo
second.
din kasi tatlo yung ata tayo. Diba?
Phoenix, I think we made it. Heading to the base.
Dati makakil ka pag namatay yung ano,
I saw
doctor.
2 skips.
Mm-hmm.
You can go inside the cave and then there's like a mountain. No! Hey, I lost all my parts. Wait, that was 6 car parts?
No, it was 9.
No.
Oh, bilis oh. Level na natin mag-30.
Get 6.
Later.
Hindi pa nag-level up, bullshit.
That was 9 parts.
Huwag mo muna ibigin tak ha.
that was
I-publish ko muna tong
six.
ano ni Prince.
That was 6 and once you get
Daming experience
the
dun ah.
Daddy.
Okay, let's go. Let's
Wait.
go.
Hey,
May annihilator na ako.
there was 6 parts and once you get the car parts, that when someone got the car parts,
Diba? Upgraded na yung ano ko.
Kaya mas okay. Pickpocket. Eagle Eye o ano? Work belt.
Oo, nag-work belt na ako. Yeah, depende sa playstyle mo. Pickpocket medyo ano din, no? Useful din. Kasi miski grenade, magpo-proc yan eh, James. Pag may napatay kang 15.
Pag yung may mga nagka-climb, diba? Parang sure.
Sure it na magbabalik yung grenade.
Oo. Kung may tatlo ka, hindi, mas maganda pa rin yata pickpocket eh. Kung matime mo kung maayos, parang 4 yung combo mo. Pwedeng dumagdag pa lalo.
Tama.
Upgrade ko na ba pickpocket? Warp. Barrel.
Pag pala hinil ko kayo, 75% tinahil sa akin. Tapos kapag in-steam shot ko kayo, may heal kayo ng 10%, ako may heal ng 5%. Oh! Friendly fire reduced 25%. Pagka in-knock ko kayo, may 30% HP kayo, imbis na 10%. Okay.
Lakas ng vector. Lakas yung kumain ng...
Advanced SMG.
Oo, lakas yung kumain ng bala.
Killing special zombies with a melee weapon will increase firearm damage by 100 for 10 seconds.
Mas madali yung final defense nito eh, kasi mas concentrated lang sila sa isang spot. Tsaka may electric fan.
Hey, what?
May electric fan defense, yung final defense area niya.
May electric fan.
Yung final part yung mahirap dito eh.
15 seconds. 10 seconds na lang gingo.
Sige lang.
Hindi ko ma-stop.
Sige lang.
Share lang din ako.
Hanggang mong ready.
Share lang din ako.
Mahirap dito yung tunnel eh. Nag-glitch.
Oo, yung sa may gate. Yung sa simula nga.
Hindi narinig ko kung late.
Si Burbs.
What happened again? Wait, first, I need a pop.
My God. May isang preacher, religious preacher sa India. 40,000 people ngayon yung naka-quarantine.
Ilan?
40,000 people. Dahil, nagpa-os siya siguro sa plan.
Ang ina tong nasa NSFW.
Sit tight back here, Doc. But I know the layout of the compound.
Can't risk it, even with your pistol skills.
We'll let you know when it's safe. Bunker's on the other side of the compound, but it'll be locked down. How do we get in? The base commanders held security cards.
So, we're searching corpses and uniform Zeke.
That's, most likely.
Looks abandoned. Watch for mines.
Why? Why?
Ano yung nasa likod mo? May sound ako. Bala.
Gatling gun yan. Yan yung Juggernaut sa COD. Nasaan si Tak?
I'm back.
Let's go.
Right.
Landmines!
Ay mo na.
I got nothing here. We made too much noise.
Yan yung mga zombies
I'm
mag-trip.
reloading!
Oh, satchel mine. Breaching charge. I already have a breaching charge. Kaya ba? Ito dito. Meron dito.
Dalawa?
Keep coming.
Hindi ko pa pala na-consume yun kanina pa. Yung nasa dam.
Did carry over?
Baka carry over na eh. Weird.
Baka dahil sa
Eyes
class
open
mo.
for a lurker.
I'm not sure.
Buksan natin itong mga
I
to.
don't know.
Sayang eh.
here.
May...
Nothing here.
James,
May mine dyan.
eh, sa...
Teka,
buksan natin to.
tara.
Hold up! I see your
Should I
mark.
shoot?
Shoot the... mine.
Bubira?
Uy, saan galing to? May flare ka, no? You wanna get it?
Yung...
Ako na, flare gun.
Hindi, okay na ako. I don't know how to use that.
Tara, ano? Vince, Screamer.
Screamer.
Tayo na. Ito na ako.
Oh shit. Ang dami rin sa likod ko pala. Pinigil ako sila James.
Gago, ang dami pala dito.
Looking a bit pale there.
Legion, you only wanna live.
Keep your head down this time.
Here ako dito. Uy, automatic res kapag ano mo.
Pag in-steam ko. Ito si James.
Got eyes on a lurker. Now that's a
DIJINN, saan ka? I-heal na kita.
Medkit dito, James. Vince.
What took you
Sa
Thank you.
Yep.
ammo break ni Medkit.
Is it safe?
James, saan ka?
Let's go, Doc.
Nagre-refill ng ammo.
I'm coming through.
Uy. Muntik na ako mag-heal sa
Ay, may ano dito. Shotgun.
something you should see here.
Yeah.
Look, I found something.
Ay, Steam. Awesome.
It's locked from the outside. They must have abandoned the compound.
Not getting through there without a demolition charge.
Shh. Go.
Mag-consume kaya yung demo charge kapag.
Wala kayo bang madademo charge?
Ay, hindi siya na-consume. Ay, na-consume siya. What the fuck? Nakuha ko may isang demo charge. Sino nakakuha na isa?
Sa akin na siya.
Mahirap to ah. Kailangan natin,
Found a
ano,
defense kit.
malapit sa...
Ipasok agad.
Oo.
Dito magdademo
Auto
charge
tear
din.
to scan.
Pagka sinabi ng doktor na ano, pasok agad ah.
Who's got the security card?
Vince, may medkit dito.
May isa pang medkit dito sa loob.
Door buster.
Tak, i-heal mo na kita.
Sige, sige.
Bull sa taas nyo, bull sa taas nyo.
Fire in the hole.
Ano, ang laki pang ng tulong ng flare gun.
Heavy machine gun dito.
Key card?
Saan?
Fortifications.
Where?
Hawak ko na.
May medkit pa dito, ano? James, Vince.
Sige. Wala na kayo may heal eh. Kuha kayo isa. Isa sa inyo kuha.
Give keycard to Gringo ba? Puta, hindi ko pa pala nabibigay.
Here you go.
I'll get it open.
Dito na tayo banda sa malapit sa...
Lurker sa baba.
What the hell?
Tayo na.
No shit. Turn it off.
Oh, may grenade launcher ako.
Turn it off.
Yan. Dito tayo James ha. Ako bahala dito sa area na to. Yan, ako dyan.
Vince, tatamaan ka. Tatamaan ka. Tatamaan ka dito. Pag sinabi ng doktor na pasok, pasok na kagad.
Gusto ko overkill.
Yung mga specials dito sa right side na gagagal.
Come on, bitches.
Watch that goddamn lurker!
James, huwag masyadong malayo. Malapit na mapuksan to.
Talk to me, Gringo!
I'm going as fast as I can!
I'm on a
Bull.
incoming!
Reload! Bull exterminated. One last gas bag.
Let's go.
Go. Pasok.
Uy, assemble.
I'm reloading.
Closing the doors!
Stay back.
Suso.
Going with the heavy.
Sorry.
I think that's all of them.
DIJINN. Mag-heal ka na lang, James, i-heal kita.
Payback time. Reload.
The other door! It stops!
Try it again!
We've lost power! Wait, there's a backup generator!
Where?
Down this
Mob.cr.
machine room! On the right!
It's good for that. Doc, you need to find a safe place and stay in contact on the radio.
Okay!
Scout rifle.
We're
Basta
screwed
niya.
if we don't start that generator.
Ang ka na ba to?
Right!
On ko na to ah.
Sige.
Go.
Breaching charge.
May mga kahon dito.
Defense. May mga defense dito.
Get the generator on!
Uy, carbine.
High 3 defense.
Patay na. Trying to hold it mas matatay ka.
Installing high voltage relay dito.
Here we go. Meat sacks. Out of ammo.
Kabilang side, meron pa.
Yeah, wala pa naman.
Doors are closing!
Nakikita ko na sa likod.
Come on, bitches.
Patay na.
Buhay pa.
Uy, speeder.
Bahala dyan.
I'm reloading.
Bull.
Uy!
They're coming from inside the tunnel. We can't hold them.
Meron dito. Kabila.
I think I can crawl to an electrical room and shut the fans. Keep your way out.
Nag-install ako ng
Don't move, Doc. We can't risk it. Coming.
May drop sa mukha akong gas. Hazmat.
Come on, bitches.
Sobrang useful ito sa mga player ganit sa kanan. Grenade launchers. Masabog.
Fans off! Go through! Everybody in! Now!
enter the command chamber. Kumuha na.
Hit the switch. Power up the grunt.
Get it!
Dito.
Baba.
I'm down below in the command center.
Oh shit, may airplane pala to.
Ay, ko, pucha.
Reload.
Kung saan lumulus na dito eh.
We've got to move quickly.
How's it looking?
We're full power. Network is solid. Guys, going to work.
Ang maganda dito, pwede mo isara yung pinto eh.
May bull dito ah.
Tell us what to do.
Leo, Jim. Tumasabog ang ano. Yung bull, hindi ko matamaan. Wait, saan mo na bala? Saan mo na bala?
Baba?
Eh, no.
Nandito sa baba.
Sa baba. Oh.
Ay, nawala. May ano, flamethrower dito.
Something you should see here.
The console on the lower floor. Start it up.
Start ko na ba?
Take ko yung bull. Bull down.
Okay na?
Okay lang?
Wala akong bala. I'm good. Start na.
Ay, bull pop oh.
Ay, saan?
Flamethrower dito, hindi nyo kinuha.
Look here. Green gold.
Nandun sa taas si Green Gold.
Naririnig ako.
Nandito ako kay Green Gold.
Gas back down. Stay.
Gago, dami sa kanya. Mag-isa ako? Tama ba?
Nandito ako may kay Green Gold.
Okay.
I need to align the dish. Activate the console to
Close
split
ko
up the
lang ito.
motors.
Interact na.
Sige.
Ako na ba?
Pagbuha na ako.
Reloading.
Shit! May smoker.
May bull dito.
All coming in.
Nag-interact na ako ah. Ay, may breaching charge ako.
Never wins, mate.
Kailang, pa-reload ako.
May medkit dito, pinta.
Okay. Cutting. Okay.
Dito kayo din.
Hiyak.
Uy, battery rifle.
Swapping in the big gun. Come on, bitches.
Kunin ko lang yung ano, flamethrower.
Bull dito kay Green Gold.
Uy! Bomber!
Here we go. P-Sax.
Okay, it's working. Now the telemetry uplink. The key on the instrument panel. Turn it.
Fire, huh? We got a lurker.
Pa-reload muna.
How's that?
Done. It's working.
Cover green gold.
It's the key I can use with any laptop.
Get to the roof and radio for evac. The air defense grid is down.
Ito the rooftop. Ito na.
Pero sa labas yun. labas na.
Phoenix, we're moving to the roof.
Ito na, defense. Lagay ako ng voltage
Yun
dito.
na yung breaching.
Ako. Meron.
Meron pa silang breaching. Bukas na to.
Ah, yeah, this will do. I found defenses.
Installing
Phoenix!
Wag mo muna buksan.
Phoenix!
Kala ko breach.
This'll keep the Zeke out.
Walang pare.
Meron dito isa pa.
High voltage defense screen.
dito sa gates. May ano dito, M416.
Auto turret is set. Something you should see.
I-breach ko to
Sige.
Payload dito.
May breach pa ba?
Meron na dito sa akin.
May extra breach pa ba? Wala na.
May bull dito sa side ko.
Phoenix! We need immediate evac! Phoenix!
Clear.
Meron pa bang closed breach? Breachable door?
Sabi ni James, meron pa daw.
May breach ako dito. Breach ko. May crossbow dito, Vince.
Okay. I'll get it.
We're in deep shit. Phoenix!
You
Phoenix!
know what? Wait lang ah. Wait lang.
Kunin ko na pa itong medkit.
Wait, one.
Mortar's good.
Uy, huwag kang gumalaw. Hindi kita ma-target eh.
Steam gun!
3, 2,
Medkit din.
Sino nakuha ka na?
battle rifle pala dito. Ano?
Alpha, I read
Kuha ko na yun.
We need evac! Air defense is down!
Alpha, I am inbound.
Ito madali lang to kasi ano,
Look.
concentrated lang
Right
sila
here.
sa isang area.
May mga magdadrop din dito ah, sa may ano, sa
Satellite.
pala.
Right, left side.
Yeah.
Pissing me off.
Can't get too close. I think these panels over the floor.
Ay, gago. Mas mat.
We got Zeke on the other flank!
Flank
On
lang.
the other flank.
Shut him up!
Screamer down.
Ay, gula pa pala. Tanga.
Here they come!
They're on the other side.
Other side.
Lagi dito sa payload. Ay, dito sa payload din sa kung saan yung ano. Dito.
Ano naman sila dito oh, sa sides.
Infector.
Sa gate.
It's a boat.
Bull.
Reloading.
Switch sides!
Medyo likod mo.
Storm inbound!
Chak, sa likod mo.
Other side.
Alpha, on my approach. You've got a massive swarm heading in from the north. Thousands!
Dito.
Your remote key. Can you use it from the chopper?
Theoretically, yes.
Buksan mo yung... Ano? Oh shit.
We got
Oh
Zeke
shit.
on the other flank! Who's next?
Drop him in the grinder.
Gas back running.
Alpha, I've got eyes on you. Hold them back and get ready for rapid evac.
Keep coming.
Eugene, i-heal kita.
Don't know what's in.
Nihil ako ni Captain America. Dito.
Sembo!
Mas madali ito, no? Concentrated lang kasi sa hallway, eh.
Hindi, may flare ka na sa launcher.
Oo, logi sila dun sa ano natin.
Holy shit! Hold on! Great God Almighty!
Well, it works.
Grabe no. Laser. Hyum!
Nakachamba tayo dun sa flare gun at saka grenade.
Laki ng tulong dalawang yun.
Oo, di sila maka-form up eh. Tapos may crossbow pa.
Inasitak pa rin sa daming kills.
Malapit lang kaya tayo. Sakto lang.
Hindi, naka-grenade launcher ako eh. Ano?
Mga 475 demolitions ako. Explosive kills ang pong 400 plus.
Secondary lang siya.
Hindi, ano yun, may mga yung sentry guns, okay mo. Tokyo. Usan natin ito, di ba? Yung Moscow.
Yung episode 2 yata or 3, hindi ko pa natapos. I mean yung part 2 or 3.
Aling part sa part?
Hindi ko sure eh. Hindi ko makita pa.
Ng Moscow?
Ng Moscow, oo. Patingin nun 2?
Assign from above yung may boat sa wave sa dulo.
Hindi, yan. Natapos ko na yan.
Key to the city.
Na DC ako nung tinatapos namin yata yun.
Ilagay mo lang top, tapos makikita naman kay Vince kung anong natapos niya.
Hello, Vince.
Yan. Tapos ko na pala yan. Hindi, okay lang. Kahit ano. Kasi hard naman to.
Ito na lang, key to the city.
Okay.
Yan ang hindi pa tapos.
Or start not in Lindo. Natapos mo hard mode ito.
Tapos ko na yung normal. Hard, hindi pa. Hindi, natapos ba natin ang hard na ito? Wala naman, di ba?
Wala pa.
Sign from above?
Di ka na yan. Tapusin natin. 350 din yan.
Nawawipe nga tayo dito kasi kaya kanina, di ba? Yung kasama natin si Merbs.
Oo. Di tapusin natin yan. 350 points din yan eh.
Isang ano na lang, pag natapos to, 30 na ako. Tapos tulog na.
Ano oras ba?
Tulog na.
Bakit ito yung sa akin? Si Ivanov.
Hindi. Natapos ko na pala yung Russia. Kanina tinapos natin. Natapos ko na pala lahat ng easy.
Pero may museum?
Oo.
Mahirap to eh.
Lahat ng mahirap.
Square kasi yung ano na ito eh. Kung saan lumalabas.
Ito yung kanina, yung screamer. Diyos ko po, saan lumalabas.
Kailangan mong pampuntahan sa kabilang room. Yun naman yung papahirap dito eh. Unlike dun sa mga ano na naka-parallel lang.
We should never have come into the city.
Let's grab what we can and get out. Find food.
Tapos may mga lalabas dyan sa gilid.
Is that a helicopter?
Dito, pre. Kawawa. Dito muna kayo.
It's military.
Pasok dito. Uy, dito. Ina. Morbid.